Hi, I'm Representative Al Baldessaro, and we're back. Who's looking out for you? My great partner, State Representative Jeanine.
Hi there.
It's always a pleasure seeing you. And
Thank you, Al.
what do you think of this weather we've been having, huh?
Well, gosh, after all, how many months of winter did we have? Now all of
Oh.
a sudden we're dying from the heat.
I had to go back and forth to Florida and keep my tan. Now I just drive in my car, put the roof down, and it's great to be an American.
Well, you know, since I started running outside, I don't really mind the winter anymore.
Oh, I'll
I
tell
just
you.
bundle up and I go out and I don't care what the temperature is. I warm
Well,
up.
For most of the listeners that probably don't know this here, watching this here, don't realize that you're a marathon runner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. She's out running. I seen pictures of her with, I don't know, they look like cleats running in the snow.
I ran in the
Yeah.
snow. Like the first time I did, it was snowing and I didn't want it in my face, so I was out there with an umbrella.
But we got a special guest today.
We
right?
do.
And you want to introduce who she is?
I
And,
will, because she's a good friend of mine.
We served in the house
We
with her,
did
too,
serve in the
right?
house
Yeah.
together, and we worked on bills together. She's a fighter. This lady, she gets things done. And I'm very pleased that she's
I hear
with
she
us
can
today.
sing, too.
And she can sing. I don't know if she'll sing for us, but it's Jane
Jane,
Cormier.
welcome.
Thank
It's an
you.
honor to have you in
Honorable.
Londonderry.
Thank you very
Jane,
much.
I'll just wave to you
Yeah.
because it's a long stretch.
Welcome to Londonderry, New Hampshire. We're one of the most fastest growing towns in the state right
I
here.
believe it. I believe it. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
community.
So Jane, you were a state representative with us.
Indeed.
And I know you ran for state senate against an incumbent, a very, very popular incumbent, and you almost won. You came very close
Very close.
as a new name in a new town. So
Right.
I know you're a hard worker.
Well, we did. We worked really hard. Unfortunately, we were about 400 votes short, but we learned an awful lot with that campaign, and so onward and upward.
And now you're running for executive council.
Yes,
Now-
Executive Council District 4.
You know, I gotta
District
I
4.
gotta ask her this question that I asked everyone else here. You know, I just gotta ask her, Jane. You were a state representative, okay, and you know what we go through as legislators there with the amount of time. Why are you running for executive council?
Okay.
What
good
makes
question.
you want to get back out there in the fight?
I am actually moved to do it. My son is graduated high school, not college, holy moly. Graduated high school, and I find myself with the desire to get back in and serve and make a difference. And when I looked at the different options that were going to be open to me, I really felt that the Executive Council, while it's probably the most, the lay voter knows probably the least about the Executive Council and what it does. When I started to look at the responsibilities, I said, okay, that's the one I'm going to run for. I'm going to try to serve on the Executive Council. So I really feel very strongly about throwing my hat into this race. This isn't anything political for me. This is in the bones. I want to give it a try.
When I went through political training in 2008, I remember seeing pictures of the executive council, and they had these stacks and stacks of papers all over the desk, and I was thinking, why would anybody want that job? And a lot of states don't have an executive council.
are it.
So let's explain it in case there's somebody that doesn't know. What is the executive
Awesome.
council?
Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. So the Executive Council is a unique vessel within the political framework of New Hampshire that goes back to Revolutionary War time, that was built as a firewall around the governor. It's supposed to keep the governor in check. It's yet another way for the folks to have a voice with regard to fiscal endeavors, that all the money that comes through has to be passed and approved by the Executive Council. So when it first came into existence, it was a vehicle for people to feel like one person that was in charge at the top at the time, called the president. They changed that to governor later years.
John Langdon was the first.
Yes. This was a way to feel like there was a safety net there of some sort in case a governor really went off the rails. I think since then it's sort of, depending on the breakup of the five-person
So there's
council,
five of them.
there's 5 members. I think that the power, the innate power in that group has not been asserted for the taxpayer. Over the years, and looking how the voting has gone, it's really hard for folks to stand up and make a case for pushing back against really what is, I think, crazy taxpayer spending, tax money going to places where we're not questioning, we're not looking at results of that money that was given in the past. We're just sort of rubber stamping. And I say, except for Dave Wheeler, who has historically.
That's mine.
Oh,
executive
you're
council.
lucky.
Yeah.
What a great
He
man.
needs reinforcements.
He does need
needs you.
reinforcements. He needs someone that's not afraid to say, no, now let's stop. Let's discuss this, because this is not good expenditure for the taxpayer. This is a wasteful way to go. And
Well, of course, we know the expenditure really is not the issue, because the legislative, we vote on the budget.
yeah,
Health and Human Services, and I know we're going with this here, Health and Human Services is the one to do the contracts.
yeah.
The piles that she's talking about that are up this high are all the contracts that they deal with. So their job is to vote on those contracts that they bring forward.
That might be
And-
true, but
And I know the one you're talking
no,
about.
no,
is
you don't know the one I'm talking about,
plan-
because there's a lot.
I know one.
There's a lot. You
Well, if
definitely
can
know
bring
one.
up- If you bring up a few,
So-
I know one I'm disgusted about.
Absolutely, and we'll talk about that, because that
right.
is very important to
Yes.
me as
But
a
what other
person.
ones, I'm just wondering, that was messed
So
up.
overtly looking at just spending what's on the table, the contracts
Mm-hmm.
on the table, that is one half of what that whole process is about.
Right.
Because another huge responsibility, as written in
Mm-hmm.
the definition of the Executive Council, is making sure that the vessel for contracting is
Mm-hmm.
open and honest.
Mhm. Oh, without a doubt,
And
I
that is
agree.
not happening now.
Yeah.
We have way too many sole source
Favoritism.
contracts. We have way too many out-of-state contracts.
Yeah.
So before those papers come onto the table for the Executive Council to vote on, we have to make sure that businesses in New Hampshire understand that they have a majority number of people on the Executive Council that will welcome their contract. They want to know that it's open, and it is not necessarily as open as it could be, Al. And that to me
Oh,
is
I agree
almost
with
as
you.
important
Right.
as voting what's there. Once they understand that there will be pushback, once businesses that want to compete, that honestly want to compete.
Right.
But here's the thing, and I've heard this time and again, and it's not just with the Planned Parenthood that you're talking about with
Right.
regard to Title
I'm so
X money.
disgusted over that one.
Oh, yes.
Well,
know,
that's a
yeah.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that one. But the truth is there are other businesses that would like to participate. And you know what I keep hearing? We wouldn't be taken seriously. They're not going to really think that this is a worthy thing. We can't fight so-and-so, okay? Who's going to put 40 to 80 man-hours of a paid executive or a paid person in the business to put forth a contract that takes a lot of time, energy, and money? If you believe that in the end it's kicked out, it's not going to compete. And that is what we have to change. They have to know somebody's going to say, where are the other bidders? And if they know that there are majority seats on that council that will say, we welcome your investment in New Hampshire. We welcome your business to come in here and fight for this open process.
I would love to
It will change it.
I would love to see somebody to hold Health and Human Services, Fish and Game,
Office.
these other
That's the one,
groups
yep.
accountable on the contracting process.
Right.
You know what
But
I mean?
see, that
Yeah,
doesn't happen
right.
now when we only concentrate on that
Right.
stack you're talking about. That's true.
Yeah.
That money is already there. Now we're going to just have a vote.
Yeah.
But it starts just like everything else in government, just like anything else really in life that's important. It always starts well before it hits you, right? It starts well in the past and we let it go or we don't pay attention. And now we're dealing with the results that are smack right in front of us. So I feel as strongly about that, about them knowing, about folks and the taxpayer and businesses knowing this is a level playing field. We are going to take every single contract that comes in and we're going to do our best to make sure the process is open and honest.
Now, states
Good.
that don't
I
have
like
the
that.
executive council, they have a lieutenant governor, correct?
Yeah.
So
I'm not even sure that it works in the same way. We can.
I know Maggie Hassan wanted a lieutenant governor. I'm like, no, we're not going to
Well, the
pay to have a
president- the
lieutenant governor so
president
she can
of
go
the
run for
Senate.
Senate.
Yes.
The
yeah.
president of the Senate is actually the governor when the governor's out
That's
of state.
correct.
Right, because when Governor Gallen died, Vesta Roy was the president at the Senate at the time,
That's right.
and she
Yeah.
became the first female senator. So,
Isn't that interesting?
Yes,
Yes.
it was Vesta Roy who was a
And
Republican.
if
Her
you
might
ever
add-
hear, what's his name there in Salem there, Chuck Morse, the senator, he brags about his 2 days of being the governor. You know, and he signed, I was there when he signed his proclamation there.
Why was he governor for 2
Because
days?
Maggie Hassan had to resign because she got sworn in as U.S. Senate.
Oh, and so he was the
So
governor
he was the
for 2
governor.
days.
For 2 days?
Yeah, for 2 days until the Chris Sununu sworn in.
So if you visit the State House, at the bottom of the stairs going up to the Senate gallery, there's a picture of a woman. That's Vesta Roy.
Oh, Anna.
Right.
And the
Wow.
political training I was talking about earlier and that I went through in 2008 is called the Vesta Roy Excellence
Yes.
in Public Service.
Yes.
So Team Vesti 08.
And a lot of good people have gone through that training.
Yes, a lot of women.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, where do you stand, like, with the governor on the judges? Are you, you know what I mean? I haven't taken a look at that, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I've been blind to see who he's appointed. Have you been
Yeah,
looking
I'm
and seeing?
understanding. I mean, I haven't done any in-depth work, but the talk is that the judges have been pretty good.
Okay.
Oh.
That they have been more conservative leaning. That, of course, is another huge responsibility going forward. We know there's another New Hampshire Supreme Court judge coming up. And, you know, for vote, because the 70-year limit will
Right.
kick in.
70 years.
Yes.
Yeah, 70
And
years
we want to
old.
make sure whoever's sitting in that seat is not legislating from the bench.
Right.
We want the lower courts to have that same benefit. We want to vet these people and to ask hard questions and not just rubber stamp from whatever political party, whoever that appointee or judge might be. Appointees are hugely important. All these appointees, there were over 300 in this last session, this last cycle for governor, that came into New Hampshire government. And you know what? It's the job of the Executive Council to vet those people. It doesn't matter how many it is. It doesn't matter how many bills there are. Our job is to get the job done and do our homework so that we can make a decision that's informed and leaning with what we propose we would support on the campaign trail. So the appointees is a huge thing as well. So yeah, I'm a big person. Conservative matters, you know, and it's ironic, though, not ironic, but when I started this, I thought it was a pretty straightforward gig. You know, this is what they do, bang, these are the 4 or 5 things. The more I delve into it, the more I am, oh my gosh, I just can't believe it, how important this is. For instance, let's say that wonderful free money that we all know isn't free comes thrown in, you know, before the Executive Council for a great neighborhood policing program. You know, who doesn't want safe neighborhoods, right? And in there is a little bitty piece that talks about gun control, you know, or red flagging, or something that
And you would catch
looks,
it.
you bet,
Jane would catch it.
looks a little bit nothing, right? But then when you start to think about the big picture with regard to Second Amendment rights, it's not a little nothing. That's the kind of thing that on surface you don't understand that that's what they're doing, but that's it. That's a
Right.
hidden contract. That's in there. Looks great on the outside. Once you put it in now, we're done.
Well,
we took the money.
I'd like to see one of those contracts that has somebody try to put that in, because we're not a home rule state. The governor cannot
is-
make, you know, laws without the authority from the legislator.
Indeed.
Okay.
But you know yourself that once you start getting agencies involved, agencies that have heads of these agencies that are not bound by legislative laws, that are bound only by their own rules, you can start seeing that they can jump the hurdle. I mean, there are things that can be done. For instance, you know, when I sat on Resources and Recreation Committee, I saw a huge amount of overreach happening on that committee. Nothing that was legislated per se, but was connected in the rules of the different agencies that came in
Right.
that impeded our rights. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You have to catch it. And it's sometimes, I'm sure, that it's voluminous work. I mean, I can read, fairly intelligent, and I have a strong you know, way to vet these things through our Constitution. It should be the first thing that we're doing.
Right.
We're losing our rights just because we're not exercising them.
You ain't kidding. I look at all those contracts and I say, my God, you almost got to be a lawyer to decipher the language and so the way
Well,
some
you
of
want
them
to
are
know the
written.
truth? I'll tell you, and despite what everybody may think, I know we hear it and we go, oh, yeah, right. I'm really not a politician. I kind of hate the whole thing. You
Right.
know? I kind of hate the whole thing.
Right.
But I do like honesty. And I think the truth of the matter is that when we look at this whole process of how government works, take out Republican, take out Democrat, it really doesn't matter. You're left with a skeleton of knowing what's wrong and right.
Right.
And if each human being looking at that would just take their little piece of the pie and do what's right, we wouldn't have to worry about any of this
Oh, I
overreach.
agree.
We're getting killed by the overreach.
You know, I've been telling everyone in my district for 12 years, I'm an elected official. I'm not a politician, because a politician, I have to kiss your butt and tell you what you want to hear
Right.
for a vote. And that's not me.
No,
I don't believe
Jane's
it.
not a pushover.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Jane's not.
She's a
Actually,
talent,
let me go over some of what it says on her card. Well, of course, I already know you're a former state rep. And you were in the 163rd state legislature. You had a constitutional conservative rating of A+. You were their House Republican Alliance score was 100%. Americans for Prosperity gave you an A. Granite State Taxpayers gave you 100%. New Hampshire Families for Education gave you an A+. National Rifle Association gave you an A. New Hampshire Firearms Coalition gave you an A, and they're very stingy with their
Yes, they
A's.
are.
It's very, very hard to get an A with that group.
Right.
The New Hampshire Right to Life PAC said you were 100% for life, and the CNH2, what does it stand for?
Concerned.
Yeah, no, that's,
Taxpayers of New
yeah,
Hampshire.
And
New
their
Hampshire
picnic.
tax, yeah. the
Yeah,
taxpayers.
Coalition of New Hampshire
Coalition,
Yeah.
there it is.
Taxpayers.
That's right.
Anti-broad-based tax pledge, yes. You have 2 children. You're the former president of New Hampshire Right to Life, and you're an educator, and you're an opera singer.
Yes, former life. Up until 8 years ago, that was my whole life. I look back still today and wonder how I ended up, running for executive council. But hey, you do what you're called to do.
Can we
So-
impose on you to sing us something on the show?
You know, I'm looking
Star
here.
Spangled Banner, maybe?
Oh my.
I'm looking here at a fiscal agent.
Yeah.
What a great person, another conservative she has on, a great conservative.
Oh, Barbara. Barbara's
Barbara
state rep,
Comptos.
yes.
Absolutely. Barbara Comtois is probably one of the best conservative representatives we have in the House, and she's steadfast and she can't be moved.
She's another one that can't be, no one pushes her around and
No.
tells her how to vote and
Yes.
what to do.
Indeed.
So about that song, can you,
Yes.
will you sing for us?
Oh my, I feel so awkward. Okay. How about God Bless America?
Okay.
Or is that too religion? Too
No,
religious?
you
We
know
like God.
freedom of speech is a beautiful thing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to sing God Bless America. Okay. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
That's beautiful. I
Thank
tell
you. Thank you for
You know, most
indulging
people
me.
don't. You traveled around the world singing, didn't
Well, I
you?
used
Around the
to.
country? Yeah, you used to.
Yes.
Singing opera, and your husband
don't you
also,
own a
right?
opera?
Yes. My former husband and I met at an opera company, Des Moines Metro Opera. And before that, I lived in Vienna, in Graz, Austria for a while, and traveled a wonderful amount of the world singing.
That's
And when I
beautiful.
had babies, I decided I couldn't do that anymore. I tried with my first, Catherine. We took a couple
But
of
she
trips to Europe.
sings too, doesn't she?
She has a rock career going, I think.
Oh,
she's
okay.
into the rock. She writes her own music.
Your
and
family's
stuff.
blessed.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Do you still own an opera company?
I don't own an opera company.
Oh.
I run a 501c3 opera company in New Hampshire called Piccola Opera.
Oh.
And I don't run it anymore. I'm just on the board now. But was the director for a number of years because I also believe that we need to save the arts whenever we can. Beauty is a good thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
So you're a multi-talented lady.
Well, I'm looking at the card here and support New Hampshire jobs and businesses with, this competitive bidding. We still got some Democrats that are on these different boards. We need somebody like you to be a strong voice, I'm sure,
Yeah.
to put them in their place here because, something, the more and more I think about this, you're right. On some of the favoritism, on some of the, they're not letting other people bid.
They're phone calling in the middle of the night. That's what's happening.
Health and Human Services on some of where I use Planned Parenthood, they said nobody else can do what they do. Nobody else can kill babies.
Well,
You
no
know?
one else can fight
Right.
them, Al.
Yeah.
No one else can beat the bid because they have so much money. They have so much of our taxpayer money.
Right.
Because people don't understand. We pay on the state, and there's also federal funds that
Right.
go to them,
Yeah.
or that have. I'm not sure the federal funds are still flowing, thanks to President Trump.
President Trump said he was
God,
stopping it.
President
Yes,
so-
Trump.
and he has made strides in doing
Right.
that, which I'm so grateful for. But you know what? I tell everybody, and I said this as president of New Hampshire Right to Life. I was there for 3 years, and I believe from the marrow of my bones that we must support life in its full spectrum, not just the preborn. But also we see the elderly being impacted, and as the baby boomers are growing older, they better be starting to pay attention, because this right to die is going to affect that whole generation as we age out. So life is important. But I used to say this as New Hampshire Right to Life, and I think probably some people felt that that wasn't really purist, but you don't have to be supportive of life to support stopping funding this private business from receiving our tax dollars. Mom and Pop's bakery on the corner doesn't get our tax
That's
dollars.
right.
You ain't kidding.
So why should they be able to reach in our wallets and take that money out? It doesn't work on any level.
That's right, especially when there's all these other clinics that are out there.
Oh,
Right.
and
you
there are
know?
tons of
That's
them.
right, yes,
Tons
there
of
are.
them. And there's Obamacare, there's Medicaid, there's Medicare. There is no reason for what they do. And
And they don't even do mammograms.
no, they have no
But
mammogram
they lie to the
machines.
people and say they do.
Yeah.
Well, they say some do, I suppose,
Right.
now because they've been caught in the lie. They do even very few. They can't even do a pap smear in-house. They have, whenever they do them, they have to send them out.
Well, let me go back to the judges here, because that's a big part of that's coming up here with the Supreme Court justice that's probably going to be coming open. And I like Linda Delaney. I knew her husband was a great guy, Griff, big time in the veteran community, but he passed away. But I don't know who's going to be stepping down. But what do you look into for when it comes to a Supreme
So
Court
we have
justice?
to look at what their rulings were. We have to look and see on certain cases that had, Second Amendment or life or the big core things that make us Republicans. How did they vote? What are their thoughts on these things? And how deep is their support for these things?
Right.
How deep is the Second Amendment
Right.
support? Because if it's only surface, I'm going to tell you what I think you want to hear.
Right.
We need to delve deeper and get to the truth of where they
Yeah.
really are. And, so it's very easy for me, I suppose, to say that we all want conservative and constitutional
That's
judges.
right. I wish there was a way we can give them a quiz
Yeah,
on the Constitution and making damn well sure that they don't try to legislate from the bench.
indeed.
I have a quiz question for you. Which one of our colleagues, former colleague to you, knows the Constitution forward and backwards and can recite it in his sleep?
Oh, my goodness, that's the gentleman,
From Fremont.
From Fremont, yes. I sit
can't remember his
next to him
name.
this year.
Daniel?
Dan,
Dan,
it's
yeah.
ITSE.
It's that's
Yeah,
right.
It's a boy,
yeah.
it's a girl.
That's right.
Everyone says his name wrong.
Great
Awesome.
representative
Yes.
there, that's
Yeah.
for sure. So you want to add anything out there, and what do you plan on doing, and what's your goals as
Yeah.
executive council?
well, I mean, they're pretty much constituent service, of course, doing contractual, paying attention to the contracts. Constituent service is huge. Having folks know that they can call someone if they have a problem that's going to follow through on what their question is all about. And that would be, for me, I know people say, oh, you're so right. You're such a, conservative. But
Well,
if
so
I was
are we.
sitting, no, I know,
No, we
but
are, yeah.
sometimes you get swathed in the idea that somehow you won't be able to see beyond that. And I try to tell people, yes, I have my core beliefs. You have your core beliefs.
Right.
But if you come to me as an executive counselor with information that you need or with help that you need, I'm going to 100% take you serious and listen to you, because that's my job. It's not like I'm legislating as a Republican. That's not what the job
Right.
calls for. So I think constituent service is huge. We have to pay attention to infrastructure. Infrastructure in this state is woefully bypassed in that the monies that are there, and there is money there, there is good money there, but it is frequently put into other vessels.
The leaky
And-
bucket.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
leaky bucket for sure. So let's make sure the leaky bucket isn't so leaky and get the infrastructure projects completed.
Well, executive council, you get to see a little bit more than we do on the executive branch. You get to see what's going on, like what's going on with the contracts with the money for the opiates. Are we getting our money's worth in
No.
those areas? The HAMMER program, are we getting our money's worth?
Yep.
So one thing I never see executive council is coming into the legislator and telling us in committee, hey, listen, this isn't working. We need to cut that out of the
Okay,
budget.
Al, I have to say,
You know?
thank you for that point. It's awesome point. Because one of the things that my team and I have been discussing is the fact of how we're going to educate people, not just on what's coming in, but on what has gone out and what were the results of what went out.
Right.
That has never historically been done. I think it's probably because the counselor is so overwhelmed. You know, there's so much stuff that they have to get through.
Right.
But this was from the very beginning, from the first days that we said we were putting this together in March, that I said, you know what, we need solutions, and we need to base the solutions with backed up facts on what were the results on how that money came through in the first place.
That's right.
What happened to it? Where did it go? And all of government needs to do that, but I think it's especially pertinent with the executive council to make sure that that vetting happens and that we can educate. You know, politicians are great. Put that aside. People that communicate are better. And if you can communicate the case before you, I think that you are very useful to the process of folks being in the play, for voters understanding what's going on
Right.
and maybe coming out because they understand what's going on here. You know, oh, gee, maybe I should pay attention to this. So communication in that regard is awesome.
That'd be awesome, because you'd be one of the first. We might see a couple doing gun legislation, you know, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm missing it, and I'm
No,
around the
you're
State
right.
House 3-4 days a week.
No, you're
you know,
right.
and being part of leadership and stuff up there.
You're absolutely right.
You had some other questions did you have for her?
Well, we
'Cause
have
I
a
know
minute
we're
and a
down,
half
we're into
left.
a minute, yeah, 45.
Just if
Your
I would
website?
yes, I would love people to know they can go to janecormier.org and all the
Can they
information.
donate there?
Absolutely.
Say that again then, where?
janecormier.org.
We'll put that up on the screen. And
Awesome.
Is there a phone number and stuff like that? Or
All
other
my
things?
contact
Everything
and
is
phone
right
number
there
is on that site.
that
I went
site?
I do answer my phone.
I went to Jane's kickoff campaign,
Did you? Oh,
and
that's
yes,
awesome.
and it was a good-sized crowd, and you gave an awesome speech. When you talk, I just listen to every word you say.
Thank you.
You just really know how to get my attention.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Well,
that.
Jane, there's no doubt in my mind, as executive council, you'll definitely rock their boats. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, it was an honor to serve with you in the House.
you.
Because you, like Jeanine and I, we're all high scores in
Yeah,
all areas.
that's right.
You know, as far as being socially right and conservative and,
And fiscal.
liberty, fiscal,
Liberty,
right.
absolutely.
Yep. So it definitely is a big thing there.
Well, thank you for joining
No,
us
thank
this
you.
week.
Yeah, and so we got about 45 seconds. I mean, you're going to go running after this is over?
I ran this morning.
Oh, you ran.
I've over 800
Yeah.
miles so far this year.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Wow,
I
good
used
for
to do
you.
that in a couple of months as a Marine, but them days are over. I'm getting too old now. I get in the car and drive, you know, and hope for the best there.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. Well, Jane, it's definitely been an honor having
Thank
you
you,
on
sir.
our show.
Thank you.
And my good friend Jeanine there, and we're honored to be back on Who's Looking Out for You, and we'll be back with another show next week.